Welcome to the All Eers podcast, powered by HD Media.
Hi, everyone. New edition here of the All Eers podcast, a West Virginia University athletics-based podcast here at HD Media and the Charleston Gazette-Mail. Thank you all for joining us. However you may be listening to us, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as well. The links for those are in the description as well. You can follow us on social media by going to our brand new Facebook page, All Eers. You can find us on Twitter as well by simply searching Gaz Mail Sports, that's G-A-Z Mail Sports, and on YouTube at HD Media Game Day. As we continue along, we spent a lot of this summer talking with former players, former personalities at West Virginia University. We've spent a lot of time focusing on basketball on the men's side of things. So, as they say in basketball, let's cross over and let's go to the women's basketball side of things, where we are pleased to be joined by, entering his fourth year at the helm of the women's basketball team, Mr. Mark Kellogg, who, by the way, the women's basketball team are coming off a historical season, hosting an NCAA Tournament, 2 games there in Morgantown at Hope Coliseum, and we are pleased to be joined by Coach Kellogg now. Coach, welcome to the program.
Hey, good to be here. We're talking hoops in the middle of July, so I guess that's a that's a good thing that we're having this conversation, and always happy to get on and talk about our specific program.
Yeah, I know that sometimes you specifically, I know you're really dialed in person when it comes to basketball. Have you ever taken a chance just to like go away, go on vacation for a little bit, and just kind of enjoy getting away from work and getting away from basketball in general?
Yeah, never as much as I should. Probably as I get a little bit older, I guess I try to enjoy those a little bit more and truly get away. A year ago we were supposed to take a vacation. My daughter got hurt and then had surgery, and literally the week after the surgery was when we were supposed to take the vacation. So we missed it last summer, but we did just go to Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic a couple weeks ago. So we actually did get away for a few days to go to the beach and play some golf and just kind of hang out as a family. So it was great.
Now, did you use the SPF 50, 100? Did you use Sport? What did you use for sunscreen? Because obviously down there it's pretty hot.
Yeah, it does get pretty hot. I don't know. It's probably like a 50 maybe when I was out there. See, here's where I struggle. I can't just sit there on the beach and lay out and do nothing.
Same.
Like, I can be active in it all day. I can go in the ocean, but again, I need like a paddle or a ball, or I can play volleyball on the beach. I can walk the beach, but I do not enjoy just sitting there, sweating my butt off in a chair or lounge chair, for hours upon hours. So that's not the women in my life can. My wife and daughter can do that. That's not so much me. Now,
are you big into jet skiing, paddle boarding, boating? What are you into?
Yeah, I would do any of that. We went parasailing for a little while one day. My son and I golfed most mornings. The women got some spas maybe once or twice when we were down there. And it was one of those all-inclusive resorts. So we got, you just go get your buffet whenever the heck you want. And then we went to dinners every night. And, just had a good time.
Who wins in golf between you and your son?
That would be me. He did beat me for the first time ever, though. A couple of weeks ago was his first time that he'd ever beat me. So yeah, he'll catch me, I guess, here pretty soon.
It's kind of like whenever you play basketball with him growing up, the dad, at least my dad used to always whip my butt all the way up until college, but it just seems like the competitive never goes away, dies away with that, right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I'm smart now, and I've chosen not to play any of them in basketball very much. But my wife and I did smoke our 2 kids in pickleball because we played 3 times on vacation. And I think the final tally was like 10-1 or 10-2, 11-2, 11-1, something like that. It was a pretty good beatdown.
Man. So wait, do you prefer golf or pickleball? We're going so far off the basketball trail right now. I'm more interested in you being more invested in pickleball or golf now.
Well, golf I play golf. If I have a hobby, it would be golf, which as a college basketball coach, you don't get to play nearly as much as I would like to. But I'll even get done with work and go walk 9 holes, and some days it may mean I'm got my AirPods in talking to a recruit or something, but I'm still out on the golf course, or I'll get a cart with my son and whip around and 2.5 hours and play 18 holes. Very rarely do I get 4 or 5 hours to play golf. But to answer your question, is I do enjoy pickleball. I don't play it very much. We play it every family vacation for sure, then maybe occasionally once or twice through the year. So golf more than pickleball.
Now, I have heard, and this is a very reliable source, I have heard that you are a very competitive golfer, but you're also a really good golfer from what I've been told.
Yeah, I'm probably.
Here comes that humility in you now.
I was like, how do you answer that? The hard part is I literally don't touch a golf club for probably 7 months. Like once September gets here, I don't ever touch a club. And then I pick it back up, and then by about this time, I get to be where you're feeling pretty good again. You're kind of hitting your shots, but I'm probably a 4 handicap, if that answers your question.
So do you have a favorite golf course in West Virginia?
That's a good question. I've played I played Greenbrier, I've played Pete Dye, I've played Pikewood. I play at the Pines all the time. That's where we're members. So that's the ones I've played the most, and those are all great, fantastic golf courses.
You've done the West Virginia Golf Tour is what you've done.
So I guess, yeah, I'm sure there's some more that are, I've been down to Glade, but I've never played. They got a couple courses right down at Glade Springs. I've never played down there. And so I think there's probably plenty of other really good ones. I played over in Parkersburg Country Club and different places. So yeah, I try to get out and about a little bit, or, we go on our coach's caravan. If I'm driving, I'll go find some people and just play earlier in the day, and then go do our caravan that night. So I find ways to mix it in if possible.
So it's almost like we need to get you involved with the West Virginia Golf Association and Chris Slack and them, because obviously they have the Senior Open and they have the West Virginia Open as well. We got to get you involved with these guys.
Yeah, see, that's just I don't ever really get to play in tournaments. We've got our member guest this weekend, but I got practice Friday. I can't be out there playing 27 holes when you have practice, but I would like to do those things, but I very, very rarely get to do anything, like that. It's just, I'm a competitor, and that's where I found that when I'm out of my season, I get to compete a little bit. And it's just with myself, just trying to be as good as I can, but if I can play with my son or playing a member and it falls on the day that works, then great. But yeah, I don't get to play a whole lot of competitive golf, unfortunately.
You mentioned the competitive side of things with you personally, and just from watching the open practice that you guys had for the media just a couple of weeks ago, that competitiveness, I think, is starting to rub off on a lot of these players that you have this year. Just kind of talk about the competitiveness that you're seeing with some of these newcomers, and especially with the girls that you have returning in Madison and in Gia.
Yeah, it's. I think one of the things that I've noticed about this summer in particular is the level of competitiveness in the practices. I think some of it I'm attributing just because we do have 10 new ones and only 2 returners. Is those 10 new ones to a certain extent are trying to prove themselves, show value, showcase their skill set, showcase their level of competitiveness. So I just think we have a little bit more to maybe prove in the summer, where when you return, your entire roster, maybe they don't feel that way as much because they've just been together and we've done it and we've seen them, in action so much that they don't have to do that in the summertime. But it certainly raised the bar this summer to the level of practice. And we only go an hour and 15 minutes, about 3 or 4 times a week. But it's been great. Yeah, they've been getting after it.
So when you do see this competitive fire, this competitive edge during the summer, does that kind of leave you a little bit more cautiously optimistic about what you do have coming into the upcoming season?
Yeah, I'm a cautiously optimistic guy in general. I think we have a ton of talent on this team. I think now it will be on all of us to put it together. And that's the hard part is, I love the competitiveness in practice. Now, what does that look like? How does it translate to being on the road in a tough environment in the Big 12? I still haven't seen that yet. And that's the beauty, though, when you have the returners and when you have Jordan Harrison and Sydney Shaws and Quinterleys and all the ones that we've had over the last 3 years, is I knew what it was going to be like when the ball got tipped, in January, February, March. I don't know that yet with this group, but that's what we're just going to keep working towards. But if you don't have that fire initially and then you're not probably going to create it all of a sudden when you get to late in the basketball season. So I think it's innate. I think these kids have that. I do think we have some crazy competitors. So it should just shine through, late in the year.
Like I mentioned, this is you're entering your 4th season at the helm, and you're bringing in 10 newcomers and 10 fresh new faces, players, personalities, whatever word you want to throw in there. Have you started? I'm trying to see how I can say this. Have you started developing a new philosophy? And whenever you do go into recruiting, you already know what you want before you even start talking to someone. And then on top of that, it's almost like, okay, what do we have returning, and how can this newcomer gel? What goes into the recruiting side of things whenever you are in this new day and age of collegiate athletics where it changes so frequently, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow?
Well, that's the hardest part is the rules, or as Coach Rod likes to say, the goalposts keep changing, is to keep up with it. So I think I'm a plan guy. I'm a detailed guy. I like to have a plan going in, but you always have to be able to adjust. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening is as soon as you think you have a plan together, a rule or rules change, just like the 5 for 5 here recently. We had a plan going into this summer and fall with recruiting and some of the young freshmen that we might try to sign. And then 5 for 5 comes in, and now all of a sudden we just got 3 more players potentially that can come back that a month ago we weren't expecting them to have eligibility to return. So then that just changes, the whole game a little bit. And I've said this now a couple of times, but in the spring through the portal, I think we had a plan, but every phone call or interest may, change. Some people that we're interested in aren't interested in us or vice versa. And so you just really kind of have to go with the flow. There's certain things that are like non-negotiables in recruiting that we're looking for. And then other things that, if you meet certain criteria, but your game maybe is a little bit different, well, we can mix and match and come up with a different game plan once we get kids here. But I think it was 18-day period. We signed 10 kids in an 18-day period and had 11 come to campus and got 10 of them. And so felt pretty good. But yeah, that's this new wave and this new era is we put together literally a roster in 18 days.
So you mentioned the 5 for 5. Has that changed how you approach recruiting at all? Because now whenever you look at a senior, you don't really look at them as a traditional senior. You're like, okay, you're going to be a senior, but then also on top of that, you do have another year of eligibility if you do so to seek that out. Does that change at all for you? How do you go about approaching that now if you do at all?
Well, for this year, definitely it's going to change. This is going to feel like kind of the COVID year again, where all those kids got that additional year, so it just kind of backlogs everything. Unfortunately, the 2027 high school graduates are the ones they're going to kind of, get screwed, I guess, here a little bit because there's just going to be fewer opportunities because so many older kids will choose to stay and take opportunities from the younger ones. And, as coaches, if you have a choice between a freshman or a senior, you probably typically err on the side of production and veteran and proven commodity as opposed to a young freshman. And so, that's what you're balancing. That's what we're weighing right now when we have our internal conversations is, we need to stay old. We need to stay with production. We need to stay with experience if you really want to succeed. But at the same time, it's hard to build a program, sustain a culture when you're turning your roster over every year. But it's also you have the ability to do that now. So it's a little bit easier from that standpoint to do it. So that's what we talk about all the time, and it never ends. But, we're sitting here trying to sign maybe a couple freshmen, but we can't oversign and then not, have enough space or money, for some transfers next spring.
When talking about just approaching these freshmen now, you mentioned the class of 2027. I know your daughter's a part of that class as well. But with the class of 2027, just talking more at a macro for high school recruits, I mean, how do you go about approaching that conversation with high school recruits? Is it more just preparing for just what could happen to them down the line? And also just kind of on top of that, do you feel the high school route is becoming, or the high school recruiting landscape is becoming more and more treacherous just in regards to, it just seems all these different rules continue to impact the high school recruits more so? Like, how do you go about approaching all of that, and how do you see that impacting future high school recruits?
Yeah, I think until we get a control of the transferring, and I don't know if we will, but as long as they're able to transfer as much as they want, then yes, I think that allows us, meaning college coaches and programs, to stay older, right? Because every year you can change that. If they only had a one-time transfer or something, and we went back to that kind of model, then maybe not as much. You're going to see the transfers come down, then freshmen, you're going to have, freshmen come through your program, somebody graduates, that freshman or sophomore now goes into that role. Maybe that's the starting role that they've been working hard towards. So, they're probably a little more apt to stay in the program. They also only would have one transfer, so they're probably less likely to leave as much as they do now. So, it's a trickle-down effect, but I think it's mostly based on the transfer. If they're going to get unlimited transfers, that does impact what would be incoming freshman high school kids, I think, quite a bit. And then, I think for high school kids, it's just what do you want? Like, or if you're looking, you think you're a high-level kid, but you may have to sit. Is that something you are okay with? Your minutes may not be what you want them to be. Should you go down, if you're talking about my level, to a mid-major Division I school and go get statistics and work hard, and maybe that's how you earn your opportunity at the power level, or you're a are you a low Division I kid that should go Division II, or Division II that should go Division III, and work your way up, that way. And I think we're probably transferring was so frowned upon for so long, I thought. And now I think that trend is maybe not that we still want to do that, but I think it's becoming a little more acceptable just because of the rules that are in place.
So when you do have these conversations with your daughter, Kaylee, and again, like I mentioned, she's going to be a senior this year at Morgantown High. When you have these conversations, are you having these conversations as a dad, a coach, both? How do you weigh that? Like, how do you go about approaching that with your own daughter?
Yeah, it's been actually kind of tricky. I've never been through that. You recruited a million kids in my time, but never one that was in the same house. But we met the other day as a little bit of both, more coach than dad, and we've really tried to separate it. And we haven't had very many of these conversations. Like, I'm not acting like we have this a whole lot, because the real answer is we've just let it happen here naturally, but we're getting to the point in her recruiting process where we do need to get this kind of figured out here sooner rather than later. And so it was hey, what are you thinking? What do you want to do? Like, she would be part of that discussion that I had. Like, what level do we think she can play at? What does that look like if you go to the highest level? What does it look like if you're, at a different level? Maybe it's a little bit lower. What kind of program do you want to be? How much does winning come into play? How close to home do you want to be? Do you care? So all of those, those are just all discussions that we've had. So I put my dad hat on briefly. And of course, basically that consists of, I love you. I want you to be successful wherever you go. I'm going to support you in whatever you do. I want to help you. Do you have questions from the dad side? What do you not understand? And of course, that was pretty quick and easy. And then I'm like, all right, now I'm putting my Coach Kellogg hat on. Think of me as a coach, as a college coach, not your dad now. Can you separate the two? And she's like, yeah, Dad, I can do that. And then I give her my coach thoughts, and whether it's her ability, our program, what it looks like at this level. If she comes to play, at this level for us, or does she want to go elsewhere? Does she not see herself playing for her dad? So like, we've gone through the whole gamut. She has one more summer tournament, which will be not this weekend, but the next, and then her AAU career is over. And yeah, it gets pretty serious pretty quick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So going back to this transfer portal and this newcomer class that you have, when you guys finally got through the wave of all the departures that you guys had and the graduations that you had, what were some of those boxes that you guys needed to check this offseason? And do you feel that you succeeded at the rate or with the personnel you brought in?
Yeah, no, I really do. I feel really good about it. We just had a bunch of holes, obviously, when you need 10 players. So you're looking for all sorts of different stuff. Obviously, we lost a dynamic point guard who'd been with, me the whole time and been here 3 years, and just a phenomenal player that got drafted in Jordan Harrison. So, trying to find a point guard or point guards. I think we've got multiple options, but, that was going to be really important. Size has always been, we've always wanted to get longer, a little bit taller. Even at the guard spot, bigger. I think we succeeded in that area. I've used the word production quite a bit, but that was something we really wanted, was kids that have produced at whatever school or level they were at. So I feel like we've done that. I think even I had added it up. I'll be off here a little bit, but before we had the first meeting, we had them here in the summer, and we met before the first practice, and I added up all the points scored on our team from a year ago. It was like 105.8 or something like that. If our team was together, they scored 105.8. I'm like, yeah, we're obviously not going to do that. So some of y'all are going to give up shots. You're not all going to average the same, which they understand. I was just trying to make the point, like, guys, be open. You're going to have different roles here. That's why you came, though. Let's learn how to facilitate. And I joked, but we got to pass a little bit, because I think it was only like 13 assists amongst that group, at their previous school. So that was something that kind of caught my eye, was we're going to have to move the ball and share it. You're not all going to get to score. And so just trying to set the precedent. But yeah, we have length, we have size on the inside, we have the ability to shoot it. Defensively, we should be able to have our same identity. I don't really put all that in the summer. We're not pressing and all that in the summer. I don't try to do that to them. But, once we get it in, that will, that'll dictate to how some of them separate themselves, I'm sure.
We're talking with WVU women's basketball coach Mark Kellogg. Our conversation continues after this break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this group in particular. We'll talk about a couple of players, and we'll do so on the other side of this break. This is All Ears.
As the game gets faster, stronger, more dynamic, your equipment has to keep up. Introducing the Riddell Axiom, the next evolution in football protection, designed to match the speed and strength of today's athlete. Contact West Virginia Riddell Representative Casey Turley at 304-552-5960. Gear up, play smart, stay protected.
HD Media Sports is your one-stop destination for top high school and college sports coverage in the Mountain State. From Morgantown to Mingo County, our award-winning reporters keep you informed about your favorite teams and players, including exclusive coverage of the Marshall Thundering Herd and the West Virginia Mountaineers. Follow HD Media Sports on Facebook to stay up to date on the latest news, features, and game coverage.
Rolling along here on the All Eers podcast, and we are pleased to be joined by WVU women's head basketball coach Mark Kellogg. And Coach, kind of going back to how we ended the first segment, I want to ask you about a couple of these players that you guys brought in. And let's start with Kennedy Harris, the transfer from George Mason, a 5'7" guard for you. I know when you look at the players you've had at West Virginia and the success that they've had, at J.J. Quinterly, a Jordan Harrison last year, a Sydney Shaw last year as well. I know you have Gia Cooke back, but with Kennedy, what are your expectations for her, and how have you kind of seen her become more comfortable at the guard position following what has come before her at WVU?
Yeah, no, we're excited, really excited for Kennedy. She's one that we brought in to kind of help manage that point guard position. And, you know, she even played off the ball a little bit or quite a bit of her life. And then over the last few years has kind of transferred over kind of to being a more full-time point guard. But she shoots it really well. I think like at 37% she shot it from three a year ago. Really good off the ball screen at the mid-range. I think it was 70-plus steals a year ago at George Mason, which obviously correlates to a lot of what we do. So that got us excited. So, yeah, it's just her getting comfortable here and understanding kind of, you know, what our expectations are. Of course, she's leveling up when she gets into the Big 12 and plays at that level of competition. So just trying to, you know, get her in our weight room, get her stronger, more comfortable, be ready for the more physical play of our league. But, yeah, great kid, easy. Personality, wants to be a leader. You hear her voice when they're in huddles. But, yeah, she's one of those that I think averaged 14-plus a game. So been productive in her career for sure.
The other guard that I want to talk about is Gia Cooke, and I know I mentioned her just very briefly, but how she played last year was exceptional, a really big piece for your all success last year. But now, similar question, but just a different turn on it. Where is your head at, which is what you're wanting to see with Gia? Because obviously, again, you had a J.J. Quinterly, you had a Jordan Harrison, and now Gia is another one of those girls that has had a couple of years under her belt in Morgantown. When you look at Gia, what are you wanting to see from her that can kind of boost this team to the next level and even possibly push you all past the second round of the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, no, excited for Gia, and obviously year two, so there's a little bit of continuity there, which obviously helps, and she was our leading scorer. So, you know, I use like the bank account system. You know, the more you're in it, your bank account grows, and the more we go through things together, you know, it grows. So, you know, like I feel good about where Gia is. You know, we'll play her on the ball probably even a little bit more than we did last year. So, you know, it's like, can we think like a point guard? Can we process the game like a point guard? She has such a scorer's mindset, which is a great thing. And she may be the fastest kid I've ever coached from baseline to baseline. You know, when she gets in the open floor, her speed is just dynamic, and she's relentless in her attack. So, yeah, just kind of processing like a point guard, getting that three-point shot even more consistent. You know, the things that we've just challenged her with this summer. Like, I know she can score, so I've kind of told her, like, gee, you could score in the summer if you want. You don't need to show me that. Like, I want to see kind of you grow in these areas, and she's done a really, really good job of trying to do those things this summer. So, yeah, just trying to get her healthy and those types of things. But really excited for what she can have. And she'll have to lead a little bit, so she'll have a different leadership role as well this year than she's had the past.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you, because just when talking with her when we had our scrum there following the open practice, it seemed like she was ready to embrace a larger leadership role with this group, especially some of these younger players that you have on this year's roster. How have you kind of seen her take that next step then as being a leader and someone that does understand the expectations and the culture and the tradition with this program now leading into her final season of college basketball?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously, as we all know, there's so many different ways to lead. And the easiest way for her is to lead because she's such a competitor. She's obviously a talented basketball player. So you naturally, your teammates are going to follow you a little bit because of those things. And then the challenge, now is just like lead in every area where she just didn't have to last year. It's like, are you taking care of your business off the court? Are you doing what you're supposed to do in the classroom? Are you the first one here? Are you the hardest worker? Do we see you getting extra shots up? Like, lead in by example, lead with your voice vocally, lead with your talent, lead by being social, right? Like, are you getting to know your teammates? Are you the one sending out the text message to the group, that, hey, we're going to go hang out at whatever tonight, everybody meet us here, like just making it an all-encompass leadership role as opposed to just, parts of leading, which, it's hard. And that's a big ask. And some people are okay with that and others absolutely don't want all of it. But she's acted like she wants to take on that role. So just trying to kind of help her and have her grow in those areas.
Who's a player in your mind that we are not talking about yet as followers of WVU women's basketball that should be getting the recognition, should be getting the attention that they deserve as they enter their first season as a Mountaineer?
Yeah, that's a hard one now because I honestly, I think because you have 10 new ones, it's so hard to just pick one. I think there's going to be a bunch of them that surprise you. The ones that scored quite a bit and, coming in, like Skylar Forbes was Marquette's leading scorer in the Big East, who's, like a 6'2", 6'3", 4 player who may shoot it from three as well as anybody on our team. I mean, it's like the game kind of comes easy to her. She's just a natural talent, like we knew she was going to be pretty good and she's lived up to that here. Kyla Ngodu, we played against at UCF, will give us like a true 5. That we just haven't had really. The 6'3", athletic, can kind of score. She can do kind of the Dirk one-legged fade, over, a shoulder. She can rebound it. Great kid, excited to be here. Like, she's done really well. Zaza Walton from George Mason averaged 18 plus, bigger, 6 foot, 6'1", kind of 3 player. So again, that's what I'm talking about. Like, we just got a bigger body there. So we're bigger across the board than we've been. Mariah Hudgens transferred from BYU, who averaged 9 plus there and started, I think, about every game. She had a couple injuries, but, started. And then there's these other group, and there's a group of these 3 freshmen who have just been fantastic. So, I'm excited about it. And like I said, we've got production from kids that have done it. And then we've got this group of kind of young bucks that are so hungry and really, really talented. In that group. So, I think you're going to hear more about the young ones, but no one's going to know them right now. So I'm kind of not talking too much about them. And it's a little bit easier to look up these ones that are transferred in that did produce.
You mentioned the size that you have, and, looking at the group that you had last year, obviously Mimi Wheeler, you had Jordan Thomas, you had just a lot of different options coming off the bench, Carter McRae as well. Now, with the size you have this year, do you feel that this is probably one of your bigger teams or even lengthier teams? Because looking at this team that you have, Coach, it just seemed like they were a lot longer compared to these first couple of teams that you've had in Morgantown.
Yeah, I should probably go look it up. By far, it's definitely the longest, tallest team, whichever term we want to use. I should go look it up and get the average height on this team relative to, our first 3 here. But it definitely would be the tallest. I would probably say that talent is from top to bottom better than what it's been since we've been here. So I think the overall talent is there. Now, is Gia going to lead us in scoring again? And then who's right around her? There's just a lot of question marks where, when JJ was here, we kind of knew. Jordan was here, Shaw, you kind of had a pretty good idea going in. And I probably have a good idea, but again, I haven't seen them do it here, so you never really know. But definitely got some length. We are definitely much longer and taller than we've been.
One of the things that I've always been interested with coaches, especially at the collegiate level, is how they go about on a year-to-year basis meshing new players with players that return on a roster. How do you go about doing that? And has that changed over the landscape of the years you've been coaching college basketball, especially now entering your 4th year at WVU?
No, I mean, I think this character still matters so much to me, and everybody always asks about your culture and how you've been able to sustain winning for so long. I wish there was some crazy great answer to that or recipe, but it's just put really good people around you, even from a staff perspective, put great people that are, they got to be good at what they do from a staff. We have to have talented players, but then if we get the right character around it is when, to me, you feel like you can be your best. So be you, align with us is one of my little sayings here. If you can't be yourself, if you don't walk into our facility every day and feel good about who you are, then they're just like, there's no way I can get the best out of people. If you feel like you can be yourself and we put other people that are around them that feel the same way, then we can get the most out of them. And my staff can feel comfortable about being and coming to work every day. And we never feel like it's actual work. Like we enjoy coming in here and being around each other. And, I think that's it to me. Like that's kind of the recipe or secret sauce or whatever, which isn't very secretive, but it's just like, that's what creates culture. And then that's what allows us to sustain success year after year. And when people see you win, and, as I've said, we started to check a lot of the boxes, meaning like Big 12 title now, Greenbrier win, right? Hosted NCAA tournament, played in front of a crowd, 14,000, like you're starting to see all these stuff. We've been ranked every week for the last couple of years, like there's so much that we're just checking boxes. And so now we're in on all those conversations. But again, I don't want to bring knuckleheads into the program. We only have 12 players. You get one or two bad apples, and it can kind of filter through that locker room pretty quick. So just to be very cognizant of who we bring in, but through the recruiting process, we think we do a pretty good job of getting that nailed down.
You've given us a Dirk Nowitzki reference, but you've also given us a knucklehead. I feel like I'm talking to my dad right now. No offense by whatsoever. My dad's a great individual.
So you're aging me then, is what you're trying to say. I must be a little bit older than you, I think, is what you're saying.
My apologies. I'll take back what I said.
Yeah.
No. So, but in all reality, though, you talk about the winning side of things, and your first 3 seasons, you guys have won 25 or more games in 3 consecutive seasons, with last year going 28-7. And you mentioned just the success, the history, so many different things happened last year that made it so historical, so memorable in a lot of different ways. Trying to put that in the rearview mirror and then go forward and try and not even double up or do better, but just simply rebound off of that. Such an emotional high, and kind of coming back to reality to then go through a new season. How do you go about doing that, and how are you wanting your players to approach that aspect leading into the season?
I think there's really 2 directions that we've gone with it. One of which is even doesn't have to do with my players. It has to do with the excitement of the program and hoping that we can continue to build off of that. But even just athletics in general up here right now, in Morgantown with what baseball just did and football and all the preseason, the volleyballs and soccers and everything, like there's just some momentum, there's excitement here. But, for our specific program, to build off the 14,000 and maybe people that hadn't come watched us before, want to come now watch a little bit more. And we just grow the excitement, grow the attendance, which has gotten better every year we've been here. But I still think there's another level that we can get this to. And so that's what, I want to take from some of that success. And then from the team perspective, because they're all new for the most part, like it's hard, they weren't a part of that specifically. So, we'll talk about it. But I think for me, I use the word standard a ton in our program, is now these new kids understand the standard works. There's a standard in which we expect to do things that can be on the court, off the court, possessions, attention to details, but just play to this standard, like live up to our standards that we have in our program. And if we will do that, like look at the things, that happen. And we've got banners now, and, which we've had since we've been here, but now we've got a new tournament banner hung up, which we've only had one of those in our school's history. So now we have 2 of those, another NCAA tournament banner up in the practice facility, but know that that's still not the end goal. Like we still want to get to another Sweet 16. We've only been to one of those, and they won 1 game to get there in 1992. So it's been a long time. And so these second rounds are great, and hosting an NCAA tournament is great, but we want to get, Sweet 16 in advance and get as far as we can, but, step by step, but we do need to get over that second round hump for sure.
So when you talk about what's next for this program, I think when you and I met last year, when we did our discussion, if I'm not mistaken, you said that the next step or the next evolution in your program at WVU was hosting an NCAA tournament and getting out of it. You hosted, now granted you didn't get out of it, but at the same time, that atmosphere, those atmospheres, I should say, second to none. But now when you look at it, I know you just mentioned it right there, how do you go about building off of that and just trying to, the expectations continue to rise at an exponential rate on an annual basis. But when you have these expectations continuing to climb, how do you as a coach remain level-headed and just continuing just to stay at the task at hand and not really worrying about certain outcomes or certain things that could possibly arise throughout the course of a season?
Yeah, go process, daily process. We don't really talk about those things a whole lot, especially this time of year. It's just, do what you're supposed to do, take care of your business today. So when the lights are on, we can shine a little bit late. But no, I mean, that's really it is yeah, we're super excited about it. We're thankful. We love being here. There's such a passionate fan base. They're so excited, to support winners, and we've been able to do that. But, I want to grow it. Like I said, I think we meet as, with our marketing team and try to come up with different things there. But when 14,000 people came to watch us play, there's an appetite for it. I see, how many come to the men's games, and it's like, man, I think we can get that here. And so we'll keep dreaming it and keep having those visions. I don't think this is the peak by any stretch. It better not be of where our program is. And I think when you see it and you smell it too, then you just even get more of a sense, and it just kind of motivates you as coaches and players to keep working just so, yeah, we can do that. But it was a step. Yeah, it was a step in the right direction. Maybe not the complete step. I thought we ran into a really good Kentucky team who was not seeded correctly. They'd had some injuries and stuff too. So I thought that kind of, was a little difficult that we had to play a team, as talented as they were in that second round. I mean, because that easily could have been a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 level game. It just happened to be played in the second round. But, we got it at home. We hadn't done that in, I don't remember what it was, 32, 34 years, whatever the number was since we had hosted. So, that's pretty special when you're doing things that hadn't been done in 30 plus years.
The other thing too, talking about our discussion last year, you were also very excited as to where the season tickets were when we spoke. I think it was right around this time, if I'm not mistaken. It was right around when you and I met. You were still trying to finalize a couple of things with your roster, and you had a pretty concrete idea as to what you had. But one of the things that you'd mentioned last year was the season ticket sales and where those are at. Without giving too much information away, where is that this year compared to last year, and how much of a boost did the NCAA tournament run have with you all?
Yeah, well, we still don't know. Actually, we just we're a little behind this year, like a month and a half behind, I think, on getting on the release of the season ticket. So I want to say just about 10 days ago we opened. It may not even been that long ago, but something like that. 7 to 10 days ago we opened up for season tickets. So we're in the middle of that right now. I think it goes through early August, maybe 7th-ish, somewhere in through there, and then it will close on August 7th. And so I guess that'll be a TBD or TBA, I guess, and I can get back to you on that one. But yeah, hopefully that momentum, and hopefully they're still excited. We're a little late into the summer, but hopefully they'll still be excited to get them. And I know the configuration changed a little bit, right, in the Coliseum because of moving the student section. And we got some of those new boxes being put in right now from a construction standpoint. So yeah, some things will look a little bit different, but it shouldn't take away from the fantastic home court we have. And we definitely need people in there and butts in seats to continue to be great at home.
So along that line, continue on how you were just ending that last answer. What is your message then to Mountaineer fans that are, because I wrote a column about this, and that is, it just seems like West Virginia fans in general are yearning for something to just latch onto, like a bear with honey, and just stick with it and just ride it out. 'Cause again, back in the 2000s, you had the men's basketball high, the football high. Now it seems the Olympic sports, especially on the women's basketball and baseball side of things, that's now seeing an all-time high in just in regards to attention and also just viewership on a much broader level outside of this Appalachian region. Your message to Mountaineer fans that are not really yearning, but just more so just you're trying to get people in just to continue to see the progress and that step forward that you guys are taking with this program. What's your message to them, and what would you say to them?
Yeah, to continue to support us. I think we have a great group, great people. Join our full court club if you want. Like, we had an open practice today for our full court club members. Like, if you want access, you want to see behind the scenes of what a college program looks like a little bit more, buy season tickets, support us there, whatever it is for you, whether it's an emotional investment, financial investment, like we're willing, for any of it. I do think in women's basketball, it does become a little bit more relational though. Like, people come more because they feel like maybe they know us as coaches, or they have a connection with the player, or, we do the little autographs after the games that the men have stolen from us. But like things like that are like, we're just trying to make a connection. I think we represent our state the right way. I think we play the right way, which, that blue collar hard work, obviously we've kind of started terming ourselves Stress Virginia here, a playoff of course, press Virginia, but we want to stress people on both ends, not just one. So we kind of term that. But just, yeah, we try to resonate. We try to be great people, represent the right way, and then when we do, we just hope people will come back and support us and love on them and support those players. And, Taylor, I even thought after we lost that Kentucky game, and we were so disappointed. Like, that hurt and stings still, and that will be one of those losses, 4 or 5 that I have in my mind for, the rest of my life. But the way the way that we got cheered after a loss, and I don't know if cheer is the right word, but just it was almost like a appreciation, I guess. Mm-hmm. Clapping on the way out meant a lot to me, and I think our players that we gave it everything. We had a shot to beat Kentucky. It didn't fall for us, but basically it was almost like a thank you for doing. The crowd doing that for us meant a lot, and I just keep thinking of that. Just the connection that we've developed with that fan base right now has just been second to none, and that's not everywhere. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, the majority of those second round games were not played in front of 14,000 people.
Agreed.
And so we were one of the few places that can do that. We saw what baseball did. We know what football feels like. So, we just, we want to keep doing it, support other programs here too, but certainly see if we can't continue to grow it.
One final question here, and then we'll get you out of here. But just take me along the lines of your schedule this year. I know you guys haven't announced too many games this year, which I don't want to get you in trouble by any means necessary, because I know Chris would probably come after me for getting you in trouble with that. But nonetheless, without giving too much away with the schedule, I know you guys are playing the Battle for Atlantis this fall. Talk to me about the scheduling at this point. How confident are you? Where's your head at with this schedule leading into the 26-27 season? How different is it compared to the strength of the schedule compared to last year's?
Yeah, we had a really good non-conference strength of schedule last year. I think we probably will end up having that again this year. I mean, it actually will be released here pretty soon. I think we're waiting just for one final contract before we can actually release it. But yeah, we do go to the Bahamas again right around Thanksgiving. I think we open with Florida and then may potentially play Notre Dame or Davidson down there. We do go back to the Greenbrier. So kind of trying to get that finalized and finished, but that's the one we're kind of waiting on just a little bit. But we should be back at the Greenbrier, which will be good. We go to Georgia Tech. That's a return. They came to us. We have to go back to Villanova, who beat us here last year. And then we've got like the Rhode Islands, George Washington. We play Harvard here. Trying to think of who else. Robert Morris comes here. Yeah, I can't remember all of it off the top of my head. But yeah, pretty much most of it finished. Like I said, just waiting on the one contract. But yeah, it's a good mix. There's some Power 5 teams, some high level like mid-major Atlantic 10 type teams, a couple of the other bye games that are, everybody has in there too. But, just trying to find the right opponents. And it's hard too, because you just don't know exactly when you're doing your schedule. We were doing it before we even had a team. So you usually try to schedule based on the team you expect to have, but it gets a little bit harder this day and age to even do that because you don't even know, and we're doing schedules sometimes a year in advance.
Okay, so I got one other question for you, because you mentioned the Greenbrier, going back down there and playing in that venue. The importance then, because I know the men's basketball team last year played in Charleston, and you guys played at the Greenbrier against Duke last year. The importance of taking the team and the program out on the road and playing a non-conference game in the state, the value in that and the importance of that in your eyes moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really important. I mean, we wanted to do it since we were here. We had actually talked to Charleston a couple times about trying to get down there. It just never really quite worked out. I mean, some of it is that, you're always hesitant because you're giving up a true home game if you do that, and we always love playing here. But we also understand the value of this state. Obviously, if you can get down, like for us, to southern West Virginia down at the Greenbrier and, get some few people in there that might not normally watch you play. That small venue, it was packed out. Not that I didn't probably understand what it was going to be. And then, of course, the way the game went for us. But, yeah, the momentum we got from that game was just absolutely crazy. It'll be one we talk about forever. For sure. But yeah, and so like it was kind of one of those where I was like, do we ever go back? Maybe that should just rest in lore as the only one we play there, because there'll never be another one like that. But when the opportunity presented itself again, we're like, yeah, like it makes sense. As you said, it's neutral. It's in a different part of our state. So yeah, I don't know if we'll keep doing that every single year, but kind of moving around or maybe playing a Charleston game. We've talked about maybe playing a doubleheader with the men at some point too, maybe different opponents, who knows who, but just both of us going down there either on the same night or maybe back-to-back nights in Charleston or something at some point would be pretty cool too. So yeah, we'll keep working on it and get creative on how we can do this and kind of take our show on the road, I guess, a little bit, but still stay within, the geographical lines of our state.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because again, the Charleston side of things, since I'm located in this area, I mean, that Wake Forest crowd was an unbelievable crowd, and from what I saw, from what I saw from afar with the Greenbrier crowd, I mean, that was just a typical West Virginia crowd, just rowdy, rambunctious, just energized in general, which probably made, and even probably put like a little bit of a sprinkle on top if you're into desserts, like the sprinkle on top with that storyline that you guys had. I mean, that was just an unbelievable just atmosphere and just story in general.
Yeah, no, that was storybook. Like I said, I've coached 21 years, never had anything even remotely close to it. I'm sure I never will, again. But man, yeah, what a cool deal. It all aligned. We're playing a phenomenal opponent. They were top 15 in the country. It happened to be on ESPN, in the Greenbrier pro West Virginia crowd that just got louder and louder as that thing got crazier and crazier. And for those five to find a way to win it, it was magical in so many ways. So if we have to recreate that again at the Greenbrier, I guess great, but certainly would prefer not to.
Yeah, I would much rather look out for your mental health and your heart rate and anxiety in that regard if that were to happen again. So obviously, I don't know if you would want to go through back-to-back seasons of that.
I don't need that ever. I don't need that ever again. I would be okay if it doesn't happen. Hey, but if it does, we got some experience on hand how to handle it now.
That is true. That is very true. So, well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Thanks for the insight on what this women's basketball team looks like coming up in the 26-27 season. Looking forward for the full schedule release. That will be posted at WVUsports.com. So, again, appreciate the insight, appreciate the talk, and always good chatting with you.
Yeah, no, appreciate you. Appreciate the coverage, Taylor. You do a great job, and I'm always happy to come on. So thanks for everything you do for us.
Absolutely. There he is, Mr. Mark Kellogg, WVU women's head basketball coach. And coming up in our next break, we will conclude with this week's edition of Bengals Views, as we will be joined by Mitch Bingle, former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor and former WVU beat writer. We'll do so here on the other side of this break. This is All Ears.
HD Media Game Day is your streaming home for the best in live high school sports across West Virginia. Featuring football, basketball, soccer, and more, HD Media Game Day brings the action to you for free, exclusively on our YouTube channel and at hdmediagameday.com. When you can't make it to the game, HD Media Game Day has you covered.
Oh, good gravy. The kind made from real premium sausage. The kind that's smothered over deliciousness. The kind you can only get at Tudor's Biscuit World. That's the gravy that's oh so good. It's the perfect topping to your biscuits or your taters, and even makes a delicious side. It's oh so good gravy. Tudor's Biscuit World. We're dripping with oh good gravy.
Welcome back into the last segment of the newest edition of the All Ears podcast. Special thanks to women's basketball head coach Mark Kellogg for joining us, talking about everything going on this offseason, what he's seen from a competitive standpoint and what he's seen from a few of these newcomers, along with the two returners as well. So if you haven't already, stop, go back, listen to that. We had a great conversation. We had a great conversation with Mark Kellogg about the upcoming season. But going back in time real quick, last week we talked with Mitch Bingle, former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor, about who we thought the best, not greatest, the best WVU men's basketball coach was of all time. And we actually agreed that it was John Beilein, who followed in behind Gail Catlett, supposedly. If you remember, for those that follow WVU men's basketball closely, as I do, as Mitch does as well, there was that one person in between Gail Catlett and John Beilein, Dan Dockich. Okay, everybody knows Dan in some capacity, whether it be as a basketball coach, as a TV personality, whatever it may be. People know the name to an extent, Dan Dockich. And when we posted the podcast last week with Elijah Macon in that discussion that Mitch and I had, Mitch actually had quoted my tweet on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it nowadays. I don't really care. I call it Twitter. Nonetheless, Dan actually quoted Mitch's tweet, and it got me thinking. I'll read it for the audience if you haven't seen it already. It's got 6,000 views, by the way, which is kind of crazy. Anyway, he said, "That's easy, ... me," in all caps, "forced a bunch of corrupt, dumb hillbillies, pass along, Hardesty, to get publicly embarrassed and had to clean up fellow corrupt dumb hillbilly Gail Catlett's crap. He didn't say crap, he said BS, but we don't say that here. This is a very PG podcast. So that got me thinking, and I don't know how much everybody knows about the situation, and I actually reached out to Mitch. We'll bring him in just a second, but I asked Mitch, I said, Mitch, what do you remember from that? And I posed a question to him. Should we talk about it? Should we open up that can of worms and talk about it? Because, again, for those that don't remember, Dan was only here just a couple of weeks, maybe less than 14 days. I'll let Mitch kind of fill us in with where I'm wrong. But Dan was only here less than 2-3 weeks, and a lot of that was due to what could have possibly happened from an NCAA violation standpoint in the latter years of Gail Catlett. So let's bring in former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor Mitch Vingle now. And Mitch, kind of fill in the holes that I'm missing, or fill in the gaps where I'm missing with this storyline, because there seems to be a lot with this, but there also seems to be not a lot with this. So just kind of fill us in. What do you recall? What are your recollections of that transitional period between Gail Catlett's last year, the Dan Dockich era, which lasted all of about 2-3 weeks, and then the beginning of John Beeline?
Yeah, I think Dockich was only here for a week. And, the thing about it was, I think we need to step back a little bit and look at the end of Gail Catlett's tenure. I mean, it was really, really dark times for W basketball. He had signed Jonathan Hargett, and, he was like the greatest recruit since Jerry West. I don't know. There was Chris Brooks in there at one point. But anyway, this guy was, blue chip. He was supposed to be, the guy. And so they started out the season pretty well, and then it just completely fell apart. A lot of the kids that were on the team said that, Catlett who was very, hard-nosed, just kind of let Hargett do whatever he wanted. And pretty soon things just started falling apart. Hargett just skipped the practice and told teammates he just did it to see what Catlett would do. And, it's sort of like a documentary thing at the end of that season. And they finished, 8-20, I think. And at the end of it, Catlett just walked away. There was mention of some kind of health issues and so forth, but it was just like, he had been mentioned up there within the conference with Jim Boeheim, people like that, as many wins as he had throughout the years, and just all of a sudden walk away. The team had just quit. You didn't see any fight in him whatsoever. And then, they had Drew, his nephew, that coached for a minute, sort of like the Josh Eilert thing. But then, so here they go with, Eddie passed along, had an extensive search, and then went with Dan Dockich from Bowling Green. He'd been a former Indiana player. He coached with Bobby Knight. Everybody kind of was on board with it, and he had the press conference, and everybody seems like, okay, this seems like a good fit. And then all of a sudden, that just blew up, and I'll never forget that it kind of came out of nowhere. Everybody knew that there was troubles behind the scenes, but nobody had ever heard of a coach taking the job and then just walking away. Of course, we didn't know the behind-the-scenes stuff and, what he allegedly found. I think there was mention that, Hargett said there was $20,000 to play for WVU, which today is nothing, But I guess then Dockich got into it with David Hardesty, the president at that time. There were allegations back and forth that Hardesty threatened, Dockich if he raised the issue. And so anyway, there was, who knows what really happened. But since that, then he walked away. And of course, a lot of Mountaineer fans would say, what a blessing, because in walks John Beilein. And as you and I spoke last week, probably the best coach that WVU ever hired, men's basketball wise. And WVU didn't really get dinged by the NCAA. They made some moves and everything turned out, roses.
I'm looking at an ESPN.com article following Dockich leaving, or as they say in the headline, Dockich quits West Virginia, goes back to Bowling Green. This is April 15th, 2002. And towards the end, about the fourth last paragraph, it says, Dockich never signed a contract at West Virginia and sought to restructure the terms after evaluating the term, according to what Eddie Pastalong said. And then obviously, as you alluded to as well, Dockich went back to Bowling Green, and he was offered a 5-year contract with his original base salary of $125,000 plus incentives. And just reading this and kind of seeing what you're saying and the parallels with this as well, I mean, during that time that you can recall, were there more answers at the time, or were there more just, I really don't want to say conspiracies, but were there just more unknowns in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, there were definitely more questions from those that weren't, in those talks. The unsigned contract was a huge thing. I mean, that allowed him, obviously, to go back to Bowling Green, but on top of that, Ed Pastalong got a lot of criticism at that point. Why would you bring the guy over and introduce him and announce it and all that stuff when the contract's not signed? I mean, there's been some of that in the past at WVU, but this one really came back to bite them. And it was just, like I said, it was ugly. The end of Catlett's tenure was ugly. The Dan Dockich, it's more of a visit than because he didn't coach at WVU. It was ugly. I mean, it was like I said at the opening. It was just a dark time for WVU basketball. I mean, you could look at it in a way. It was even worse than the end of the Huggins thing, because there were two parts to it.
Yeah, I think one of the other things, I'm continuing to reference this ESPN.com article, it said that Dockich agreed to a 5-year, $2.5 million contract, and then he met with West Virginia players for the first time on a Friday, then kicked 5 of them out of the meeting when they arrived late. So he kind of was filling it out, because I think along with what you were saying, it just seemed like, I think him kicking them out kind of just set the precedent of, like, there's a new sheriff in town and everything else, and then obviously we know the rest of it. But my question now, Mitch, and I appreciate the recollections with this, but when you look now at how this has evolved over the years, I mean, we're talking almost 25 years later, and it just continues to seem like his name just continues to get thrown out there. I don't know if it's just people just saying it, or he's just saying it, or whatever. I mean, you and I see it on social media frequently, and we obviously saw whenever you quoted your tweet. But why do you think this continues to get brought up almost 25 years later?
Well, a lot of it's Dan Dockich. I mean, he brings it up. It seems, I don't understand really. The only thing I can think of, I mean, why he would, go on there and call them dumb hillbillies. And I mean, Eddie's 83 years old, something like that. I mean, I don't know where David Hardesty is or what he's doing. But at this point, the only thing I can think is that when he did go back to Bowling Green, it didn't work out for him. Okay. I think he had, one winning season over the next 5?
Correct. That was an 04-05 season.
Yeah, and was let go, 2007. So,
Yeah.
And then, so I don't know if he harbors ill will, because after that, his program didn't do much. But then he went on, ESPN. He was on ESPN. He was on 107 The Fan. But both of those, he, quote, exited or, quote, parted ways. And then I think he still is on Outkick, has a show on Outkick, I think.
Yeah, he's on something nowadays. He's still busy regardless.
But I don't understand why he still holds this vitriol, at this point. Like you said, it's been 20-some years. So why? It's just, except for he, saw what Beeline did, and I don't know. I mean, he could have stuck around. He could have made, gotten through whatever the problems were, fixed it. Like Hugs used to say, right? We're going to fix it. Everybody at WVU would have, been patient if, whatever came out. I mean, anyway, I don't know. I don't understand why 20 years later there's still this bitterness.
Well, I mean, just say it like this, and I know you and I alluded to it last week, but WVU definitely got the better end of the stick. You get a guy in John Beeline who was coming up through the ranks from the Group of 5 level up to WVU and led them to what they did, making the NCAA tournament, beating Chris Paul, was just a game short of going to the Final Four. And then obviously you get Bob Huggins, and now granted, he never quite amounted to what people thought he could, but still, though, you go to a Final Four with Hugs in 2010. I mean, Mitch, I don't think I sound stupid when I say this, but I think West Virginia got the better end of the stick with back-to-back good coaches. Now, granted, the ladder of Hugs is still remembered, but if you just look at the coaching side of things compared to off the court, I think WVU still struck really good deals with back-to-back coaches.
No, absolutely. And that's what I say at the beginning, And, like I said at the beginning, blessing, right? It ended up being a blessing. And the thing is, going back to Dockage, I mean, he did well after. Even he was at Bowling Green for 5 years. He was on radio shows. He was pretty popular, to be honest. And but still, even on those shows, he often disparaged W program, the fans, the university leadership, and all that. Instead, just turning the page and enjoying, his success on the radio and ESPN. But I guess what they say, make your own bet. So
I just think at the end of the day, and I'll just say this openly, I think at the end of the day, the whole thing with Dockage is kind of like when a little brother just continues to just poke at the bear, and they're like, hey, don't forget about me. Hey. And you're just like, knock it off. Like the big brother's obviously doing better things. I'm not trying to reference him as a little brother, but I'm just using it as an example. But like, it's just like one of those things, like it's just continuing to get annoying, and you're just like, at some point, the big brother's just going to just kind of just smack him and just be like, just get away. Go away. Just go. We don't care. Just go.
Right.
Like no one cares, I think. And it's not that people don't care in the sense of we're talking about this. It's just more so I want to talk about this because you were around, you covered it, you saw it, and all that. So I want to at least bring it up to give people at least some sort of insight as to what also happened. Because again, as you mentioned, as I mentioned, he does bring it up every time. It seems like every time, I should say. West Virginia is brought up in some sort of category, whether you talk about a coach, the program, whatever it may be. He gets brought up regardless. And he also brings himself up regardless. So I'm just like, at some point, people just got to be like, just mute him. Just mute him. That's all I got to say. Just go on social media. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And you're just like, just shoo. It's like a fly. Shoo. Go away. Go away.
Well, and you think about how things move so quickly these days, and I saw somebody tweeted the other day that they saw Gail Catlett in a grocery store there in Morgantown with his grandkids or something, and hugs. Everybody, a lot of people still love hugs. You turn the page. So it's just hard to understand why, after all these years, he can't let it go. But everybody else has certainly turned the page. I promise you, in West Virginia.
Oh, trust me, I believe that. So. Well, my friend, we appreciate the conversation. Thanks again for the insight. Thanks again for the recollections as well with this, because I just think that it just provides more and more insight as to what that time period was like from Gail Catlett to John Beeline in the early 2000s. So appreciate your time as always and appreciate your insight.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon.
All right, there he is, former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor and WVU beat writer Mitch Vingle. That'll do it for us. Special thanks again to Mitch for joining us. And again, special thanks to WVU women's head basketball coach Mark Kellogg. Again, be sure to check out all of our other podcasts by going and looking us up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as well. Subscribe to us, follow us, ring that bell, as they say on YouTube. I kind of turned into one of those vlogger YouTubers, Sean. I don't know why I did that, but nonetheless, give us a follow, give us a rating. Let us know what you think about this podcast thus far. This is our 25th episode. So football season is right around the corner as we're going to continue just to produce more and more content for you all. So be sure to leave a rating, star, whatever you want to call it. Do that, and we will continue along this discussion leading into football season and down the line as well. Again, you can follow us on social media, on all of our pages, especially on our brand new Facebook page, and we will see you and talk to you all next week. This is All Ears.
You have been listening to the All Ears podcast, powered by HD Media.